Here we are at the Keyhole Garden as usual, just to check it out. Not a lot of big changes since last time, other than the deer eating the compact tropical rose, which had me a little upset. But yeah, this is what it looks like this week. Obviously this was Memorial Day weekend, so I don't know how you spent your Memorial Day weekend, but we spent ours putting in the shade border finally, which was long overdue. So that's what we're going to kind of look at, is just kind of the different stages of that. Talk about a little bit about why we did it the way we did it. So let's get into it. You can see the pots kind of placed here. That's not a big deal. What I really wanted you to see is just how weedy and grown up the area is along where we're putting the shade border, which is it's right next to our drainage ditch that runs the side of the property. And a lot of that stuff goes over to the other side. There was talk about clearing it by hand and pulling the vines out, but that's just too much work. It wasn't going to get done for us. We have plenty of other things to do before the border needed to go in. So, as you can see, I went through and I cut it as short as I could with the lawnmower. Pretty much define what was going to be the border or the beds for this shade border. And just cut everything as much as we can. And we're going to do it kind of like we would do a bed I would just throw down somewhere. That means throwing down cardboard and compost as a mulch to kind of hold back the weed pressure while the plants we put in get a chance to establish themselves. So what we did after I cut everything short is the big plants, kind of like the anchor plants, the azalea, the hydrangea, the pawpaw trees on the end, a couple of the other shrubs we have. We put them in the ground, which took forever because there's a lot of roots over here. This is why we're doing it this way. And you can see they're in the ground, and I have put the cardboard down along the outside border because I know it's going to take more than one load of compost, and I wanted to get the outside border first. And luckily I had enough to cover that outside border about how I wanted. Went in, just got it filled in and covered fairly thick because we're going to plant into that instead of planting into the ground because it's so hard to dig into. Normally wouldn't do that as much with annuals, but also this soil over here isn't real great, and I know that over time the compost will mix in with the soil, the worms and the bugs and the microbes will do their job, and this will help make it better in the long run for that border. You can see we anchored each end with the pawpaw trees. Tried to do it that way. And here's some of the compost we get from the dump. I just kind of wanted to show you that this, I talk about all the time, but it's really good. It's really broken up. It's kind of in between a nutritional and a mulching compost. So I really like using it, really happy with theirs. And here we are, like I said, took 2 loads. Which is better than it could have been. I have on the inside part of that border where it edges the water, I have taken sticks and old boards and a lot of stuff just to create a border to keep the compost from washing away and into that drainage ditch. Because I really don't want it to wash away and I really don't want it in the drainage ditch, and I wanted to make sure I define that side so I know to keep the weeds and stuff cut back there as time moves on. But it's a really thick layer, thicker in some places than others, because that's what we need to get some of these things planted. Some of the ferns are in really big pots. And I'm sure one day I'll learn to try to film without the sun at my back so that my shadow doesn't get cast into the shot, but today wasn't that day. I was pretty tired at this point too. I unloaded a lot of compost in the past 2 days. And a large part of why I make sure I have a path that I can get my truck back up in here for now. Makes it a whole lot easier when you can just shovel it out of the truck. And then we kind of came along and together laid out all the pots. I kind of took this end, she took the other end, and we laid them out. And we discussed what was going where there were gaps, the groupings. Lots of hostas. There are 48 hostas, more hostas than anything else, which is great in a shape border. And like this is a vital part of creating any border or creating anything from scratch. Like I said, we planted the anchor plants because they were going where they were going, but then laying out everything you have that you know is going to go into your border or your garden and moving it around and seeing if you got the spacing right and that the colors match up like you want to. And if there's more than one of you discussing it with your partner of what this should be. This will get refined a little bit as we put them in the ground, but the more you can refine things, the better. So with them all placed, like the next thing we have to do is plant, and in this compost it'll be a whole lot easier to do. You really just did most of it by hand. There were a few places where we had to dig down or cut through the cardboard, but not many. Some places we planted things prouder than we really wanted to. Had to kind of pile the compost up around them. But I knew that was going to be an issue, and I think over time they're going to be just fine once all this settles. And when I planted the anchor stuff in the ground, it took me roughly 3 hours to plant 10 plants, which is not what it usually takes me. A lot of places in this yard, I can stick a shovel in the ground 3 times and have a good hole to plant in. But like this, everything went really well and really easily. And here's the finished product. I think it looks really good. There will of course be updates as we go along, and I'll do like a compilation at the end of the year. But for the moment, I'm going to shut up and let you kind of enjoy it.